So taking us through today, Melanie will introduce the topic for consideration, the use of plastics in early years. My role is to act as mediator between her as presenter and you as the audience. You are able to ask questions through the typing box, and my role is to try and seamlessly weave those into the conversation as we go through. The process is usually around 25 to 30 minutes of presentation and then time for questions to come through, but please don't wait. These are far better sessions if we run them as a discussion. Any comments or questions you have as we roll through the presentation, please don't wait to the end, just drop me a line and I'll try and weave it into the conversation. And particularly of interest today, Melanie and I have just been talking before we came on air, just talking about some of the activities that we know nurseries are already taking to reduce their use of particularly single-use plastics. And so if there are any particular activities you're doing in your settings or in your provision, please do share them, and we'll try and share them with everybody else on today's session. So, without further ado, as I say, the structure of the session, very normal, very usual to a seminar, but it's on the web. We talk for a while, hopefully giving you new, interesting information. Questions and comments I will feed into Melanie, and we see how we get along.
Just one thing to add there, Michael. As of today, and as part of the new era that we're going into, we are also offering a CPD and attendance certificate for these webinars, and we'll give you details of how you can actually get hold of that at the end of the session.
Thank you, Melanie. I would have forgotten. You should have a taskbar such as that on your screen, and as it indicates, you can type in a question, you can type in any comments. Rest assured, they only get seen by me here, so no question is too obscure or dull or strange, and I'll try and feed those in at appropriate times into the conversation. So, without further ado, Melanie.
Thank you very much. A really important subject today, and one that we may not immediately think is relevant to us in our work in early years. And what I wanted to do today was actually to highlight just how important this is, and that, as it says there on the heading, we are nearly at the point of no return. We still have the opportunity to make a difference. And as with so much of our work, we start with the young children that we are actually caring for. So plastic does have a significant impact on the environment, as it says there, and the fact is that much plastic waste finds its way into the ocean. And you can see from the figures that there are 500 times more pieces of microplastic in the sea than there are stars in the galaxy, which just seems a phenomenal figure to think about. And by 2050, so actually we're not that far away, are we? Just over 30 years away, it's estimated that there will be more plastic in the ocean than there will be fish.
And that's certainly within a time frame within which the children we're currently working with will be having children of their own.
Absolutely, yes. This is the legacy, isn't it, that we are leaving to our children. 79% of the plastic produced over the last 70 years, and let's face it, plastic hasn't really been around that long, has it? And it's been a revelation. It's made a lot of things better, and I don't want to sit here this afternoon and vilify plastic as such, but it is the single-use plastic that's having a real impact. But saying that, 79% of all the plastic produced over that period has either been thrown away into landfill sites or into the general environment. And just 9% of the plastic we produce is recycled, which means that only 12% of that plastic is still in use.
Yes.
Yeah, which just seems a huge waste. And we know that marine litter harms more than 600 species amid what some regard as the beginning of the 6th mass extinction of life on Earth. And again, this is man's impact on the environment. You know, we're talking about meteors and, you know, the end of the dinosaurs and so on, but we're having a bigger impact than all those events over the history of time.
Can I please ask somebody not to write in and ask what were the other 4? I guessed meteors was one.
Meteors, I'm sure. The Ice Age.
All right, we'll have
Thank you, we'll have that.
Right.
And those yet to be identified.
That is not a question you're allowed to answer.
Thank you, Michael. And as you can see there, plastic finds its way into our seas and our oceans, and it breaks down into microplastic, which finds its way into our food chain. And we know that scientists have already identified that, you know, there is microplastic in the food that we are eating, and actually that's getting into our systems. And I picked this picture out because I thought we do a lot around beach school and forest school, and I was just thinking, well, is that how we really want our beach schools to be? And I've been in forest school sites recently where actually there's lots of similar rubbish lying around, and I find it deeply distressing. Schools are already taking action, and as you might have seen in the original advertising spiel that we put forward for this session, last year Damien Hines told schools to eliminate the use of all single-use plastics by 2022. And I remember thinking at the time that was a really brave target to set, all single-use plastics. And that's not going to be easy, he said, but we all have a role to play in driving out avoidable plastic waste. And there are examples of schools that are already doing their bit.
Are any of them down to zero yet?
No, not yet. It's a case of moving towards, it's a step change. Obviously, school does not have to provide the same level of care as early years settings do, but we can follow their lead, and even better, we can set the example in the first place. And so just again to look a little bit more deeply at some of the issues, plastic does have many valuable uses, but we have become over-reliant on it. There's no getting away from the fact that a lot of it does have that significant purpose. But how many of us, for example, have bought a 6-pack of water or fizzy drinks or Michael lager in plastic bottles, which is then wrapped in plastic?
Yeah.
This double wrapping. And I've noticed as I'm trying to cut down myself on my own single-use plastic, looking around the supermarket and thinking, well, why am I buying things that are double wrapped? And there is definitely an increasing trend for double wrapping everything. And again, a banana, an onion, they come in their own wrapping, for goodness sake. So why do we have to pick them up in plastic? And supermarkets have already issued figures that say more and more people are actually buying food loose, which is, again, a really positive thing. And it's only if we stop buying the double wrap products, they will stop selling them. Plastic drinking bottles, again, there are something like 1 million plastic drinking bottles purchased every minute, while up to 5 trillion, I can't even write that number, single-use plastic bags are used worldwide every year. And in total, half of all plastic produce is designed to be used only once.
Is that correct? I didn't realise that.
Absolutely true. So we have some big issues here, and we've got to start thinking about what we use for convenience sake and what actually is necessary. And then another of my bugbears, and I saw a recent article in The Independent that said that a mum was actually campaigning for people to stop using plastic toy giveaways in fast food meal boxes, because it is wrong on many levels. Not only is it encouraging children to eat fast food, which is wrong, but these plastic toys are often cheap and nasty, and you know, any of us have got children that know that the novelty lasts for minutes. And then we come on to the toys and games that are overly packaged with little play and learning value, and what they're doing is just selling a promise that even a child's vivid imagination cannot recreate. And everybody's got a tale to tell about children who have more fun with the wrapping that their gifts came in, yes, exactly, than the toys themselves. Oh, if we could just go back, you've missed the world, Michael. In the blink of an eye, we have had this huge impact. So if you look at the top left-hand corner, the Earth has been there for 4.6 billion years, and humans have been on the planet for just a mere 200,000 years. And yet in that time, we've altered 50% of the world's land has been drastically altered or destroyed or changed beyond recognition. And animal extinction rates are 55 times higher than they've ever been. And across that, I've put early years can make a difference, leading by example and helping children to embed habits and attitudes that will stay with them for life. And that would be my overarching message for today's session. And here we are in more familiar territory as we look at understanding the world from the EYFS. The children that we're caring for now will have to own the changes that we need to make now. And our role is to give them that knowledge and understanding of the world that will empower them to do so. And it's there in the EYFS. We don't have to scratch around looking for the reason or ways by which we do this. We have an emphasis already on children understanding the natural world around them, and they need to understand it in order to be able to care for it and care about it. And you can see I've put up both the current early learning goal for understanding the world and one of the proposed ones as well, which would come into force. We're probably thinking around 2022
if it all goes ahead as per the DFE
agreed, yes.
agreement.
Okay, so thank you, Michael. And I had quite a lot of fun putting this list together, and this has really made me think about the single-use plastics that we have in early years. And I know that people out there would be able to add to this list, and I hope you will. So we have the single-use that we use for care purposes, and most of this is PPE equipment, so personal protective equipment that we must use, the disposable gloves, plastic aprons, the nappy bags, but other things that we have that maybe we don't necessarily need or need to use so much of are included there as well. Plastic wrap, cling film. I can remember showing, I perhaps shouldn't admit this, but I will. I can remember showing a trainee in my setting which way round to put the cling film onto the containers, yes. and had her looking very carefully to see which was the right way round. But actually, only this morning I was looking at an advert for alternatives for plastic wrap, for cling film, and they are there. And there was one particular product, and I can't remember the name of it, which can be reused up to 150 times to wrap food and keep it fresh.
And what's it made from?
It is made from a recycled, it's certainly not plastic,
right.
But it's sort of material-based,
right.
coated with something that actually helps to keep the food fresh.
And that was just on a general Google search?
Yes, yes.
Right.
So it is out there. It's just taking the time, isn't it, to actually find it. Then we've got the water bottles, the milk containers, and I've got some statistics on that on the following slide. The double-wrapped groceries, which I said are the bane of my life. Plastic cups, plates and cutlery, which we use simply for convenience.
Yes.
Nothing else but convenience. Cotton buds, I've warned my husband that when this packet of cotton buds is ended, there will be no more unless they've got the wooden handles. And then the handy-sized items that we use, for example, the little hand sanitizers. We overuse it anyway because it doesn't replace soap and water, so that's another of my little bugbears. But those handy-sized items that we get through, some settings get through hundreds a week.
Nikki's just come back. Yes. I think you're talking about beeswax wraps.
Ah.
They are available on eBay or Etsy and are fabric coated in beeswax that can be reused over and over again. I'm hugely grateful, Nikki. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. And it was Etsy that I actually saw it on this morning, so thank you very much for that. Certainly something I should be ordering anyway.
And Penny's just made a comment, and I think it's back to the care issues again. It's important to remember not just to throw resources away because it's plastic, if already owned, continue to use. So things can become reusable, just not necessarily in their original form.
Yeah.
And as she says, consider alternatives for future purchases. Yes.
Absolutely. And this is if we made one change, and we're going to look at some statistics, we're going to look at some numbers later, but one small change can make a huge difference. And what I would say now is that there are some items there that are single use. For example, the disposable gloves, you will see the box is usually marked with a little S and a circle and a cross through.
Right.
So you know that they are actually single-use items, and those things can't possibly be used again. But Penny's quite right that there are a lot of things that we could actually reuse that we don't already.
She's also just added to Nikki's comments about the beeswax bags. You can also get vegan-friendly wraps.
There you go. It's all there. It's all there. And then the play and learning. Did anybody remember? I think it was late last year, wasn't it, before Christmas, that one or two nursery chains actually have banned glitter.
Why particularly glitter?
Glitter because it's almost the same as microbeads, which have already been banned. That it's so tiny, it gets into the soil, they get into the food system, and really potentially dangerous.
Okay.
And again, there are alternatives to that as well. You know, you can buy recyclable glitter, if you like, or eco-friendly glitter. And I was experimenting just with sugar, just sprinkling sugar and so on. I thought, why are we so obsessed with glitter? But we are, aren't we? Sellotape, you know, again, reams of sellotape, plastic straws, pre-cut foam shapes, and we just go on and on, don't we? And as I say, you can add to that. Plastic pockets, you know, what we used to call poly pockets, are another thing. You know, we print things off, we pop it into a plastic pocket, or we laminate it. Why? Why do we have to? We don't always. And then plastic food.
Yes.
And plastic representations of real things, again, that we have in our home corner. And then again, I was thinking about felt tip pens. You know,
yes.
Again, it's all there. It's all things that change.
Just one comment on the plastic food.
Yes.
It was a conversation I was having the other day with a speech and language therapist friend. And one of the examples, whenever she is doing tenders to local authorities or anybody else trying to promote the language value in early children, she uses an orange. She takes a real orange and a plastic orange. And so not even looking from the plastic use point of view, the language opportunities in a plastic orange are minimal. What's its colour and what's it look like? That's multiplied tremendously if you've got a real orange. You've got smell, you've got texture, you've got you can adapt it, you can take it apart, etc. So linking this back to the real things, not only does it reduce plastic, but it is a far better learning opportunity for the children themselves.
Absolutely, which is why heuristic play is so important in our settings as well.
So Pamela has just asked a question, and this is going to stump you. How can we safely get rid of glitter we already have?
Oh, I wish I knew. I'm still finding glitter in my car from Christmas.
Right, we'll throw that open to anybody who's listening, because that is a real challenge. So all right, we don't know, but we will research that and can do a response.
Definitely.
If nobody can come up with an answer, we will find one for you, Pamela. And a second point from Penny and can you hold that thought, Penny? We'll come on to that in another slide.
Oh, right, I'm intrigued now. So, what I think the problem is that a lot of our single-use plastic has become invisible to us. We just use it, we don't think about it. So if we just move on, Michael, let's look at some of the statistics now. Okay, so this is an average 52-place day nursery. These are real figures, I haven't made them up, I haven't plucked them out of thin air, but this is an average 52-place day nursery. So 12,500 nappies a year. Now, obviously, you know, we can't change that because unless babies are born potty trained, which is unlikely, then there are always going to be nappies. However, there are alternatives, but that is parents' choice. You know, I think nappies probably from a parent's point of view has been one of the best things in recent history. Those 12,500 nappies, though, or nappy changes, equate to at least 5,000 nappy sacks, at least 37,000 nappy wipes, and again, single-use wipes. And I remember when I've managed nurseries, watching members of staff pulling out handfuls of wipes to use just in case, and then throwing half of them away unused. Of course, it's really important that we make sure children are clean, and, you know, I haven't got a problem with that, of course not. But it's just thinking carefully about how many wipes we actually need to use and what we need them for as well. 5,000 single-use plastic aprons, and I was looking on online early years forums recently and seen that a lot of settings have stopped using those single-use plastic aprons, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then at least 12,500 pairs of single-use plastic gloves that we don't necessarily have to use.
To equate to 12,500 nappy changes.
And let's think about this a bit further, Michael. I'm just going to throw a few more figures at you now, because if there are approximately 80,000 registered childcare settings, that includes childminders, preschools and nurseries. Now, if we do the maths and if we say, okay, well, a quarter of those might use this many plastic gloves in a year, that still equates to 250 million plastic gloves. It equates to 740 million of the wipes and 1 million nappy sacks. It really adds up.
Nick has just sent a comment in about the wipes. My childminder friend uses cheeky wipes, not something I'd heard of, which are reusable baby wipes that are washed each day.
Oh.
They're like a little flannel, so no throwaway wipes used at all.
Yes. Yeah.
And similarly, Penny's just come in terms of reusable nappies, which she washed and dried. As trying to model good practice with the parents.
Excellent. And that's something we can do, isn't it? We can model good practice to parents and give them information about alternatives that are out there. But I'm really hoping that we're going to hear back from you on these things, because you're all coming up with some brilliant ideas already, and we'd love to be able to share these with everybody. So please let us know, and I'm going to tell you how you can actually let us know at the end of this. And then we've got the hand sanitisers and an additional 7,800 wipes for hands and faces. Now, I've been working in childcare for an awful long time, before wipes, baby wipes were even invented, when we used to just use tissues or, water or cotton wool to actually clean children up. Then we've got the settings that use up to 2,000 non-recyclable milk containers, the 4-pint milk containers. And some nurseries that I've been reading about have actually negotiated with their milk suppliers to actually use recyclable containers.
Excellent.
So again, they're big, aren't they?
They are, yes.
6 kilograms of glitter, which equates to, in that quarter of settings, 1.2 tons of glitter over a year. So the question was, Nicola said, about how can we get rid of that we've already got? One
of my personal things on this, Nicola, and I'm not sure how much glitter you've got, I would make juggling balls out of that using some balloons, which I assume you probably have. If anybody's interested, I can come and give you a workshop on how to make juggling balls and hacky sacks out of using filler into balloons.
Wow, so we're recycling, because again, balloons are another thing, aren't they, that cause a lot of damage. So recycling what we've got and making best use of it.
Deborah has commented on your point in terms of using flannels for cleaning faces and hands, and it's blindingly obvious, isn't it? And they're washed after each use.
Absolutely. And again, it's that convenience thing, isn't it, of grabbing a pack of wipes and just, it's too easy.
Because you would never think of doing that in the home, would you?
No, absolutely.
And it's just presumably one of scale that's led us down to the view from a convenience point of view that we'll do it this way.
Yeah. It's habit. And then not to mention the rest of the art order. And again, I started to look at some of the art supplies and thinking, how much of this is stuff that is there for convenience. It doesn't demonstrate children's expression and children's artistic nature at all. It's pre-cut things quite often that we give to children to create with, or not, as the case may be. So there we go.
That's one nursery, is it? That's
just one nursery. That's my own recycling. So just wanted to put that up there just to remind us actually of what we're talking about again. So let's spend some time thinking about nappy changing then, because I was at a recent big conversation with Ofsted, and the regional director stated, Ofsted don't care whether you wear gloves for nappy changing or not.
That got a response.
It did, because you could see everybody thinking, yes, great, wonderful. But a lot of people thinking, oh dear, now I don't know what to do. So let's just dig into that a bit further. It is true that Ofsted do not stipulate that gloves and PPE, personal protective equipment, must be worn for nappy changing. It doesn't say that in the EYFS. Nowhere do Ofsted actually require that. However, it's false to think that you don't have to use them. You must still adhere to health and hygiene guidance, and Ofsted do expect you to do that. So if we just move on, and I'll just clarify that a little bit further as well. Clinical guidance, and I've done a lot of work in the past with infection control nurses in settings that I've worked in, and also, of course, we've got our own infection control handbook for early years. And clinical guidance does state that single-use gloves must be worn when dealing with bodily fluids that may pose a risk of cross-infection. And that includes feces, blood, vomit, and diarrhea. So we're not saying that we don't need to use single-use disposable gloves.
And they must be single-use?
Yes, they must be, because that's the whole thing about cross-infection.
It's not ones that are washable?
No. A wet nappy doesn't normally pose a risk because urine is actually sterile. And again, because I've been working in the sector for an awful long time, I remember when we used to change nappies without wearing gloves, without wearing aprons. And for me, it was actually more alien to me to put on gloves to change a nappy. So what I'm saying is that some settings will find that staff will feel very uncomfortable about not wearing gloves for a wet nappy, but there is no clinical reason why you need to wear gloves to change a wet nappy. So make it available for all staff for dealing with other bodily fluids, and of course when there is an outbreak of infection, and of course if you are going to change nappies without wearing gloves, when they're wet nappies only, if they're dirty nappies, if there's feces, you must wear gloves. Hand hygiene is still absolutely paramount, good hand hygiene.
I would be interested in participants' comments on what they think the attitudes of their staff would be to a suggestion about not wearing gloves to change wet nappies.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole point with this. I think you've got to be sensitive to how staff feel about doing that and how comfortable they feel about doing it. Okay, so a few practical activities and ideas, and again, you've got more ideas than I could ever think of. I know you have, but one of the things that again, relating back to knowledge and understanding of the world, we talk about the difference between plastic and natural materials, and Michael made a really good point about how those natural materials and fruit and veg and so on, how that can actually promote language development when we talk about how it smells, how it feels, how it looks. Seen lots of brilliant examples of schools in particular organising a litter pick, but of course the proviso there is that we take care that young children use a litter picker. I was surprised at how cheap they are actually. That one that's illustrated on the screen, just £3, explaining the rules, just don't touch with bare hands, and if you're not sure about it, don't pick it up.
Can you get young children's sized ones?
That particular one is.
Is it really?
Yes, it is. Yes, that's specifically for children to use. I think the adult ones are probably about £5 or £6, so yeah. Encouraging problem solving with the children by asking, do we need to put this in a bag? What can we use instead? You know, those times when we're out and about with children, maybe visiting the supermarket and so on, looking at what actually needs to go in a bag and why, and actually what we don't need to put in a bag. They love me on the tills in Tesco's when I go in with my half a dozen oranges and a dozen potatoes loose and pile them on the counter for them. And set the challenge for parents too. And let's face it, children are the biggest sort of influences of parents' shopping habits, aren't they? In many negative and many positive ways as well. So,
Deborah's come back on that question about perceptions for staff, and I hope she doesn't mind if I read this out with a particular bit of emphasis. I think our younger practitioners would find not using gloves and PPE alien. But we would need to emphasise the reason we're advocating this change. I think the reference to younger practitioners, I think, is interesting there.
And I'm so glad you said that, because that's what I would have liked to have said. I was trying to be very diplomatic about it.
Yeah, the audience doesn't need to be.
No, exactly. But, you know, like I said, there are a lot of us who've been in the sector for long enough when we didn't have to wear, or we didn't wear gloves.
Right.
And again, looking on some of the early years forums, a lot of practitioners, childminders as well, that are saying, actually, I've stopped using them. I only use them for a dirty nappy, not for a wet nappy.
Thank you.
interesting. And then some other ways to get involved. There's some really good stuff out there. Surfers Against Sewage, which I thought was literally for surfers. Yeah. But actually their website is excellent and contains lots of ideas, resources, and they have a lot of those reusable and eco-friendly products. So do have a look at their website. Then we've got the Friends of the Earth website, which is also full of lots of really good information, good statistics, some of them you've already seen today. Lots of resources on their website, and I particularly like their Plastic Free Kids page, so have a look at that. And then on the 5th of June, we've got World Environment Day coming up. So I just thought about this. What an excellent idea to actually really make a change, make a commitment to change. And we will be putting more details on the Alliance website about how settings can actually get involved in that.
Thank you, Mel. Just a comment from Penny, just with a suggestion: teach the children about wrapping paper. If you can scrunch it up, it can be recycled. If it can't, it is not recyclable. And particularly an issue, obviously, around Christmas presents and other times when we're looking to try and take some things forward. So I think it's that sort of idea, isn't it? And then if you always think about what you can do with something after its initial use.
Yes.
Is probably the question, isn't it?
Definitely.
Is there something else, or can I use it again? If not, is there an alternative to what I'm doing?
Definitely, and those are just the sorts of ideas that we want to get, and we will gather those ideas together and put some further guidance out for you. So brilliant, thank you. And as we go on to the final slide, again, please let us know what you're doing. We'd love to know what you're doing to reduce your single-use plastic use and other waste in your setting as well, because the nice thing is with this is once you start, if you start with single-use plastics, then the momentum will gather and we'll look for other things that we can change as well. So we've got World Environment Day on the 5th of June. You can email Caroline Graham at Early Years Alliance. The address is up there for you, and we would like to feature your story possibly in our magazine or on our website. What we will do, you will get from us an email.
An automated email tomorrow.
An automated email tomorrow where you can actually request your CPD self-evaluation certificate. You can feed back to us on what you're doing, so either emailing Caroline or emailing us on the on the email that we're going to send out tomorrow. And let's get going on this, shall we?
Thank you very much, Melanie.
All right.
Thank you for taking part today. For those of you who are seasoned webinar attendees with us, you know that I use this sort of slot to waffle on for about 30 seconds if there are any other questions or comments, and they have. Deborah suggests we've adopted the curiosity approach for exactly this reason, keeping some plastic equipment and selling on or donating other items. Children now use real china and metal cutlery.
Yes!
Excellent, Deborah. I'm glad you've raised that. Children need to understand and engage with metal cutlery and china plates. And in the best experiences I have seen, things get knocked off tables and they break. The children's response is generally conditioned by the response of the adults. If there is a calm response which just clears up, tidies up without any fuss and without any concern or criticism, then the children respond appropriately, and it's a very effective learning approach. If we all panic when there's a large plate that goes onto the floor and breaks, that sense of anxiety increases within the children.
Of course it does. Of course it does. And Deborah's responded to you there, Michael, again, saying exactly.
So again, it is our modelling of behaviour, both in terms of the resources, but also the way that we engage with them with the children. Thank you for your time today. The final point to which I would draw your attention is that in March, the next webinar we have on the 27th is part of the series that we started last month, focusing on speech, language and communication, looking at particularly in terms of speech this time under the title of Lost for Words. Nikki has suggested, I've had a thought inspired by the discussion. It would be really useful to carry out an audit of sustainability practice in the setting. Is there a pro forma available for this, or would it be possible to produce a template? if there isn't, Mel would be more than happy to write one. She's nodding at me very vigorously here. I won't give a timescale on that, Nikki, but certainly we will create it over the next few weeks, and certainly in time for World Environment Day.
Definitely.
And we'll take it on from there.
Definitely.
Debbie's thanking us so much, using it the next staff meeting. You've given me a great plug, Deborah. What we will do, as we now increasingly do with these webinars, is we are producing a downloadable set of materials that can be purchased, which basically revisit the slides we've done, and with additional resources that allow you to replicate this in inset training with your staff. So again, more information will come out on that on the automated email, and we take it on from that. Pamela's asked, how can we join the Lost for Words webinar? Gracious, this is fantastic.
Wow, this is brilliant, Michael.
We have not yet, I have not yet registered it on the system, but what we will do is that gives the URL login details. We normally do so 2 or 3 weeks before when we start promoting, so look out for it through our usual channels. And Nikki said, thanks, the audit will be useful in the run-up to the World Environment Day.
Brilliant.
It just remains for me to say thank you, Melanie, for stimulating such an interesting conversation. My thanks to all of you who've attended and have submitted the questions as we've gone through. And let's make this a catalyst for an incredible amount of change across the sector. Just my opportunity to say thank you once again, and goodbye.